We all know the werewolf myth. You get bit by a wolf, get cursed, and every full moon you transform into a hideous beast filled with bloodlust and rage. Or so we thought. Not every werewolf film follows this mythology exactly, but that's what keeps this subgenre fresh and entertaining over the last few decades. Before we begin, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. At no cost to you, every new subscriber helps us get one step closer to achieving our goal and keeps us motivated to create new content for you. With that being said, I'm your host, Jamie, and here is our list of top 10 werewolf films. Number 1, Ginger Snaps. Released in 2000, it was marketed as a teen girls encounter a werewolf-style film originally. But it's actually very much a coming-of-age film disguised as a werewolf film. It follows two siblings, Brigitte and Ginger Fitzgerald, morbid goth teenage girls who don't really fit in anywhere and have an unusually close relationship with one another. That is, until Ginger, who just started her period, is bitten by an unknown animal and becomes a lycanthrope. While it explores her transformation, it also touches upon various feminine topics in a way that, at least for 2000, were really provocative and spoke to many young girls. They filmed a sequel and a prequel back to back, later released in 2004, but they don't ever really capture the uniqueness of the first entry. Worth checking out, especially if you grew up around the time. Might bring back some nostalgia. Number 2, An American Werewolf in London. The film that almost single-handedly revolutionized the special effects world with its transformation scene is actually more funny than it is terrifying. Released in 1981, the plot revolves around two American backpackers traveling across Europe when they end up in England and they are suddenly attacked by a giant wolf dog. It turns out, it was a werewolf. Now, as I mentioned before, the transformation scene is a standout moment in this film, as up until now, most had just been a slight camera trick. And instead, here, we get to see the whole gruesome process. However, the fun doesn't stop there, as David repeatedly gets visits from his dead friend Jack, often in hilarious moments, and the carnage that results from David transforming in the middle of an adult movie theater is so wildly over the top it'll leave you both shocked and laughing your ass off. A sequel was later released in 1997, An American Werewolf in Paris, and it didn't quite have the same charm, but also worth checking out if you love this subgenre. Number 3, Wolf. Starring Jack Nicholson as an editor over at a publishing house, one dark and stormy night he accidentally strikes a black wolf with his car. He goes to investigate and of course is subsequently bitten by it and infected with lycanthropy. Not only that, but soon after the incident, his life begins to go to shit, as tycoon Raymond Alden takes over the business, demotes him, and his new replacement is having an affair with his wife. The anger begins to slowly bubble up in him, and this begins to set in motion his transformations. Now, most of the film is actually played out as some kind of modern gothic romance, but also a noir crime thriller, as notable people go missing. It kinda reminds me of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in a way. I think it is a very highly underrated werewolf film. Most of the ones on this list people have heard of in some form or another. Not too many talk about this one, so if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out and let us know what you thought. Number 4, Werewolves Within. Based on a video game of the same name from Red Storm Entertainment, the film follows a group of people in a small Vermont town trapped by a snowstorm when they realize there's a werewolf amongst them. Kinda like a whodunit style mystery. As more bodies begin to drop, the suspect list grows smaller and smaller, until the final reveal, and it was and wasn't a surprise in the end, but still wrapped everything up nicely. Most of the characters are over-the-top stereotypes, but that works for what is essentially a quirky horror comedy film. Many people and critics panned this film initially, but I think that was mostly due to the pandemic and the poor marketing. It's got its bright spots, and the kills are appropriately bloody, so if you're looking for a fun film featuring werewolves, give this one a go. Number 5. Teen Wolf. Speaking of fun times with werewolves, while the CW tried to reboot the franchise with an edgy emo take on the story, the original is anything but. Starring Michael J. Fox as the titular character, he's a likable doofus whose only real accomplishment is playing for the Beavers, his high school basketball team who haven't had much success. Well, that changes shortly after he starts discovering hair growing in weird places, and his dad finally reveals he's a werewolf. Apparently, it runs in the family. He tries to keep it a secret, but of course, during one stressful game, he transforms right there on the court and goes on to win it. Suddenly, the school is overrun with wolf fear and begins selling Teen Wolf merchandise, and the film just goes off the rails in all the best ways. If you're looking for a more family-friendly werewolf film to watch with the kids, this one might be perfect for that list. Number 6. Silver Bullet. Based on the book Cycle of the Werewolf by the maestro of horror Stephen King, the film actually has a pretty stacked cast, but is missing quite a bit of what made the novella so scary in the first place. However, don't let that deter you from seeing it if you haven't yet, as it's still filled to the brim with all your favorite King tropes, such as being in a small Maine town filled with quirky characters and strange supernatural happenings. As strange murders begin to plague the town, it's up to Marty to catch the beast man responsible. With help from his alcoholic uncle Red and his sister Jane, they collect some pieces of silver, have them melted down into bullets, and well, I think you can put together the rest. Suspenseful and moody. If you want a more traditional werewolf story, then this is what you're looking for. Number 7. The Howling. What I like about this movie is that it approaches the werewolf mythology from a new perspective. That yes, it is still a curse transferred through being bitten, but that they treat it more like having someone join their ranks, as the werewolves of the world have some sort of giant hive-minded cult. For 1981, when this film released, that hadn't been done. There were no underworld movies or so yet. They make it seem like being one of them is like joining some exclusive club, where the benefits are unbelievable, and put you above the rest of humanity. However, for our main character who doesn't trust anything, it becomes a literal living nightmare. After she is bit, and begins to see the visions as the curse takes a hold of her, she tries to find answers, and then tries to find a way to rid herself of the curse. I think the most standout part, though, is that ending, as she's been gaslit through the whole film, and not a single soul believes her. She goes on a TV talk show and transforms live on the air. It is spectacular, leaving you wondering what's going to happen next. Unfortunately, there were sequels, and they just kind of ignored that. People playing it off as a hoax, which kind of deflates it. But regardless, it's a pretty epic film. Number 8. Cursed. Brought to you by the outstanding auteur that was Wes Craven. After his successes with Scream and the new Nightmare film, he tried his hand once again at meta filmmaking with 2003's Cursed. It is not the greatest film, and it does have its share of issues. But for what it was intended to be, its tongue-in-cheek approach to the mythology is actually quite funny. Filled with a bunch of obnoxious characters, soon the werewolf curse begins to spread until a final showdown between a bunch of people with werewolf abilities and ties to Van Helsing or something. It has some uproarious laugh-out-loud moments, and while not particularly great special effects, some of the more bloodier scenes can still satiate that craving for you gorehounds. If you find yourself category surfing late some night, looking for something in the horror section but not too intense, give this one a try. Number 9. The Wolfman. The classic film from Universal, the one that made him an icon of horror in the first place. 1941's The Wolfman starred the man of many faces, Lon Chaney Jr., as the Monster Man himself. It takes a slow, more deliberate approach to the classic myth, featuring dark satanic rituals based on old pagan beliefs and Romani legends that eventually build up to the initial wolf attack and the first transmission of the curse itself. At first, when the killings start, the townsfolk believe it's a pack of wolves, setting traps for them and so forth. But eventually the town becomes suspicious of Larry. His father doesn't believe in the nonsense, tying him to a chair to prove he isn't a werewolf. But of course, when the moon rises, he fully transforms again, and his father is forced to put him down. A rather tragic ending, as Larry didn't want to be a monster, but didn't know what to do either. If you ever wanted to see the film that started it all, it still holds up remarkably well to this day. Go check it out. Number 10. Werewolf by Night. Superpowers in comics can almost seem supernatural at times, so why not blend a little myth with a little science fiction? Werewolf by Night is a Marvel film, part of the ever-expanding Marvel Cinematic Universe, that actually focuses on an actual werewolf. I mean, it is so shocking. You've most likely heard of Blade, who hunts vampires, and then there's the Marvel zombies. So why not a werewolf too, right? The film is pretty simple. It follows a group of monster hunters who compete with one another to get their hands on something called the Bloodstone, a powerful artifact that basically grants its user with superhuman strength and long life. The film itself is short, barely clocking in at an hour, so I don't want to spoil too much here if you haven't seen it, but it features plenty of other types of monsters as well from Marvel's extensive roster, and has some really cool visual effects. Originally released in black and white, with the only colors being represented by any kind of powered objects, they also released a full color version later on, so you can choose which flavor fits your taste better. You can find it on Disney+. Thanks for checking out the video. What's your favorite werewolf film? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to tap that bell icon to stay up to date with our latest releases. You can reach out to us on Twitter or X at StudiosFat, or chat with us on Discord, linked in the description. I've been your host, Jamie. Beware of the full moon.